Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Brook Soltvedt, and I'd like to introduce Grant Foster, running for Alder from District 15. As we begin, please tell our viewers a little bit about how your educational, vocational, and civic experience has prepared you for the position and why you decided to run for Alder.
Great, thanks, Brooke. One of the question that I keep getting over and over and that keeps stumping me is, why are you running for office? And there's just so many reasons that sometimes I get tripped up a little bit. As I've continued to think about it over the campaign, what really stands out for me is my commitment to service, to community service. So it's something that I saw modeled by my parents growing up, and remember every week going out and helping on a number of different things as they would go and help people in their community and their church community. And it's something that I've really carried with me as well throughout my life. Really since I've been in Madison, coming here in the mid-90s to go to college, I've really looked for opportunities to help work for and with my community and make it a stronger place. So I spent a lot of energy working in the field of education. I was on the board of Nuestro Mundo. I was the president of my kids' parent-teacher group. And then the last 3 years, I really sort of shifted focus and started working more with the city. I was appointed to the Ped Bike Motor Vehicle Commission and the Long Range Transportation Planning Committee. And those really gave me a great experience and insight into how the city works. And I'm really excited to take it to the next level and do more work on the council.
Thank you. Madison's efforts to address chronic homelessness have appeared to fall short, especially with regard to providing sufficient support systems for a housing-first approach. What ideas do you have that might create greater success for projects such as the one on Tree Lane?
Yeah, I think first of all, I would say that we really need to tackle this from a lot of different perspectives. So solely focusing on sort of the large kind of housing first projects will only get us so far, even if they are successful. So I think we really need to take a hard look at our zoning, at what we can do to incentivize smaller scale development to increase our overall housing stock. But as it relates to the housing first model, in District 15 has Rescue Terrace, which is another example of this, and I've had an opportunity to be up there a couple of times. I think by most accounts, there were some issues there over the last year, but I think things have really stabilized. Part of the success of that, I think, really comes down to the people that are there, the people that are working in support of the residents. And I think with Tree Lane, it was clear that we didn't have that level of support from the beginning. Thinking about my experience at Dane SSM as the Director of Health Information, I was responsible for a lot of larger projects. And one thing that I always made sure that we did was to invest more resources than we thought would be needed in the beginning, because as you're creating something, there's always things that are going to go wrong, things that you didn't anticipate. And I think if we look to do more of these in the future, we really need to invest very, very heavily, especially in the beginning, and then as things get established, we can probably pull some of that support back.
Okay, thank you. The Madison Police Department has been faulted for not having appropriate policies and training around de-escalation and use of force, especially with regard to people of color. What's your perspective on whether any changes are needed in ways Madison police operate in our community?
Yeah, this is, so along with being on the Ped Bike Motor Vehicle Commission, I've really paid very close attention to all the topics that have been in front of the city, in front of the Common Council over the last several years. And this issue, I think, has seemed to be the most charged. It's been really difficult to watch even some of the discussions and things that happen outside the council chambers as well. I think the community has a lot of strong feelings around this, and it started to feel very, very polarized. Over the last couple of months, I've been knocking on doors, meeting with all kinds of folks in District 15, and it's an issue that a lot of people bring up as well. And I hear people that might fall into sort of the category of we support the police, and we really don't want challenges to come to what the police are doing and let them do their job. And I've heard from people saying we're really concerned about the current nature of policing, and we need to change. What I hear in both of those populations are people talking about wanting to feel safe. And so the people that are looking to support the police acknowledge the role the police play in our community and in safety, and really want to make sure that doesn't go down. And the people that have the other perspective are saying the actual amount of policing and the nature of policing is having us not feel safe. So the way that I would really approach this is focusing on that common ground, which is everybody in this community wants to and deserves to feel safe.
There's a perception that Madison's story is a tale of two cities, one in which people of color are less likely to experience success. What can be done to ensure that Madison is a community in which all people can thrive?
Yeah. And again, I'm really grateful that there's been a lot of attention to this issue, especially over the last few years. What I'm hoping is that we really move to the next phase, which is starting to dig in and address the issues. I feel like it's pretty well accepted that we have this gap, and I think there's really broad public support to move the bar. I think we can get stuck a little bit when we just talk about it as a racial disparity and gap, and we sort of say, well, we need to do something about it. And so specifically, I think most of the other major issues that have come up in the campaign, in the debates for mayor, et cetera, things like housing, transportation, family supporting jobs, these are really, when you actually talk to families that are struggling, these are the specific issues that they're struggling with. So for me, these are all important areas, but the one that I have the most background in is on the transportation front. And so I'd really like to look at expanding accessibility of our public transit system. I think that's really critical for everyone in the city, but has a really huge opportunity to improve mobility for those that are struggling right now.
Thank you. What issue have you identified as being of primary concern to the residents of your district, and how would you approach tackling it?
Yeah, I mean, transportation has come up quite a bit, actually. Thinking back to Rescue Terrace, and a lot of the residents there really cite that as struggling with not having bus service late at night or on the weekends to get back home. A lot of them depend on bikes to get around, actually, and so some improvements that are needed in the bike network there. But really probably the thing that stands out the most in District 15 is around this question of development, and this is something that the broader city is also facing. I'm very supportive of infill development. I think there's no question that as a city, we need to accommodate the growth that's going to happen in the city in a denser footprint, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and I think most residents also understand that. But what I've heard from them is also wanting to make sure that we respect the positive qualities of our existing neighborhoods, right? And that as we bring in new neighbors, existing neighbors don't want to see an increase in crime, and they're really worried about the impact, especially on traffic, congestion, and on-street parking. So again, it connects back to that question of, if we're going to continue to add this many people, we need to also develop our transportation system to be able to accommodate that density.
The relationship between the council and the mayor appears at times contentious. Is this a problem? And if so, how would you improve the relationship?
I think it absolutely has been a problem. I mean, I'm one of those geeks that sit at home and watches the meetings at home, and you get to learn all the characters, at least as they're presenting at the meetings, and it's been really disappointing at times. And I think just really distracting from doing the hard work. I mean, policy work, any work in a large organization is just really, really difficult. And it takes a lot of focus and collaboration. And so I'm really looking forward to having some new members on the council, possibly a new mayor. And I think there's a really good opportunity to change the feel of how that's been working. What changes, if any, should be made in how the city approaches major projects such as Judge Doyle Square and the public market? Yeah, I think, so this is my predecessor in District 15, Dave Aaron. These are two big projects, or projects that have been important to him, and I think he's really talked a lot about making sure that we're careful with our public dollars. I might be a little bit more enthusiastic about the future of the food economy in Madison, and I do think there's some real opportunities there to really tap into the assets that we have as a region with the food economy. And I'm encouraged by the plans transitioning back to reuse of the fleet building. I think it'll really bring the scale of the project to be a little bit more manageable and takes out some of the complexity with working with a private developer that we had been working on. In terms of Judge Doyle Square and other large development projects, I think it's really time that we reconsider our approach to TIF and to public investments in these projects. I know that there's been a desire to make sure that we have investments coming in, private investments into the community, and that we want to make sure that developers don't turn their back on Madison. But I think given the growth projections, the amount of desire that there is for people to move here, I don't think we should be putting public money in where these developments will already happen. And instead, I think we need to really think about how can we leverage those public dollars towards increasing our affordable housing stock, for example.
Thank you. What council committees do you want to serve on, and why?
I love them all, honestly. But again, just given my background in transportation, I'd like to continue to work with the revamped Transportation Commission and Transportation Policy and Planning Board, and then really given the close link between transportation and land use, I think Planning Commission is another one that makes a lot of sense.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete the interview?
Thank you. Well, first, Brooke, thank you very much for the interview, and League of Women Voters and City Channel. This is really critical to democracy, and I know I really appreciate this information when I'm going into the voting booth. In thinking about that, what do I think about when I'm getting ready to make a decision and to vote for a candidate? A couple things come to mind. One is around values and principles, right? Does the candidate I'm voting for share my values? At the end of the day, when they're casting their vote on an important topic, do I have confidence that they would vote in a way that's similar to how I would? The other thing that I really think about is what is the background and experience of the candidate, and will they be effective, right? Are they going to be able to navigate what's a really complicated bureaucratic system, be able to work with city staff, with colleagues on the council, with the mayor, and really continue to be engaged and represent the residents in their district. And I think that's a really tall task, and one that really requires a unique skill set. And lastly, I think it's about time and commitment, right? Even the person with the right values and even the right skills. I think this is a really big job. And if you talk to anyone that's done it, they'll tell you the same. So I think we need to make sure you've got somebody that's ready to put that time and energy into it. And in all of those spaces, I feel like I'm a really strong candidate, and I'm just really, really excited to represent District 15 and the City of Madison.
Well, I want to thank Grant Foster for speaking with us and the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. Please vote in this and every election. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.